For me, the principle of the guillotine, as it had been used in the past, I think we had a 2-hour debate on the property tax and then a 3-hour debate on Irish water. That really pissed me off. And that's an example of where the principle should be that the Dáil orders its own business.
But you were going in there and pressing the button to guillotine.
Yeah, I know. But the point of loosening the whip.
You must feel pretty rotten about that now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you kind of wonder, well, why didn't I make more noise of this at the time? Why didn't we as backbenchers stand up and say, this isn't right, do better? And we didn't. And I've spoken about this before. No, it's not a question of being scared. You fall into a kind of institutional traps. You go into a place, it's a new place, people tell you there's a particular way of doing business. You may not like it, but over time, when you're busy and you're doing different things, you start to accept things that maybe you wouldn't have when you first came into the Dáil. But the importance of whip reform isn't to allow TDs to vote against things they don't agree with. It's to actually make us better legislators, to make us pay attention to the detail. If I'm not going to be able to put down an amendment on a piece of legislation, vote for that amendment, try and get others to vote for it, what's the point of putting down an amendment? If there's a legislation going through the Dáil and I'm going to have to vote for it because it's government legislation, well, what's the point in reading it? And that's the important thing, because if we look at the crash, people weren't paying attention to the details, our legislators. And so the idea of whip reform is, if you make a politician say, you've got to actually stand over this vote, they're going to pay a lot more attention to what they're voting for. And that will lead to a better parliament and to better politics, better debates. People, being legislators, not just communicators for their constituents. And then the other thing it does as well is it takes a lot of the politics out of the back room. You look at the protection of life during pregnancy debate. We had a 5 or 6 hour debate in the parliamentary party room. It was an amazing thing, and it's one of the most amazing experiences I've had in politics. Everyone spoke. They spoke in detail, they spoke passionately, a couple of people cried. But it all happened behind closed doors. And I always say to people, if you'd have seen that in the Dáil, your respect for politicians would have risen dramatically. And part of the problem we have is people don't respect politicians because they can't see them doing the work that we do behind closed doors.